This is DRF Race of the Day.
Everybody, Mike Beer here with Saturday's DRF Race of the Day. We're going down to Tampa Bay Downs. It is the Grade 2 Tampa Bay Derby. It's going to go as race number 11 on that Saturday card, full of graded stakes races down there at Tampa Bay. $400,000 purse for this race. 3-year-olds are going to go 1 mile and a 16th and try and make their way on the Kentucky Derby Trail here. A big field of 12 has been entered, led by your morning line favorite, as you can see there, number 3, Candyman Rocket. He won the first step along the Derby Trail down here at Tampa last month in the Grade 3 Sam F. Davis. That race made him 2 for 2 on fast dirt in his career. It was the first time they stretched him out in distance. He paired up 85 Beyer speed figures for his last 2 wins. He beat a similarly big field that day. There's just a lot to like about this horse. He has a really nice, handy running style, and he certainly has looked good in his 2 wins so far. Facing a little bit of a different cast of characters here. It feels like some of the horses he beat last time could be tighter and perhaps a little bit tougher for him to deal with in this race. But the reality is, off of his last 2 starts, there's not that much to knock about him. He hasn't run that super fast race yet. He's going to have to do that as he continues on in these better races as the spring and the summer goes on. But this horse has run pretty well in his last 2 starts, and he does look like the horse to beat. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race, because Timeform US is projecting a fast pace for this Tampa Bay Derby. We'll see how that plays out. They have the 11. That's one of Todd Pletcher's runners in this race, stepping up off of a maiden win, Promise Keeper. They have him showing speed and being part of the pace. They also have your morning line favorite, Candyman Rocket, up there. To me, the horse who I thought was most likely to be on the lead was the 5, Boca Boy. He showed speed and cut the pace in that Sam Davis last time while off the layoff. He feels like a horse who could be a little tighter for this, and he does look like he just really wants to be forward in his races. I can certainly see him showing speed and making the lead once again in here. But we'll see how the pace all plays out. Let's take a look at some of the contenders in this race. We're going to start down on the rail here. My Liberty is a big long shot on the morning line. He's stepping up and stretching out off of a maiden win last time, going 7 furlongs. He showed some speed there, contested the pace, fought back in the stretch to prevail by a short head with a 75 Beyer speed figure. He looks like he's in very tough here as he stretches out in distance for the first time. He does have speed. He does have the rail. Perhaps this is a horse, for these connections who don't mind taking a shot in big races like this. Maybe this horse will just come out of there running and actually be part of the pace. I certainly think that's possible. Whether he's still around at the end is a totally different question entirely, and I'd be surprised if he was. The number 2 is Super Strong. This is actually a pretty interesting horse in here, a little bit of a wild card, making just his 2nd career start. He debuted in a Group 1 race down in Puerto Rico, and he actually took money in that race, and he ran very well. We have a replay of it right now that we can show you for anybody who hasn't seen it. This horse, he ran well in here. They took him back off the pace from the start. They kept him on the outside the entire way, maybe to keep him out of the kickback there over that wet track. He made a nice 3-4 wide run around the turn after a horse who was on a clear lead in there. And you can see through the stretch, he just stayed on strongly, had a good finish, ran down that tiring leader late and was clear to the wire. You never, obviously have any idea what these horses are beating over there. And perhaps this is a really big step up in class for him, but it's not like he's finding some, super, super strong Derby prep race here in the Tampa Bay Derby. I mean, it's a race where, based on what he did first time out, perhaps this horse really could contend in here. He's got to stretch out a little bit in distance. He has the pedigree to do that. He's going to make his first start for Saffie Joseph in here for, connections that are showing a lot of confidence by running him in this race. And he did look good winning first time out. We'll see how he stacks up against what perhaps is a much, much better field this time. We don't know. Number 3 is Candyman Rocket. He's your morning line favorite. He's the horse to beat. Again, he's paired up 85 Beyers and winning each of his first 2 starts over fast dirt in his career. And he just, there's really nothing to knock about those 2 wins. He showed, nice handy speed. He's got, a nice running style where he gets forward, but he, is perfectly willing to just sit there and keep up with the pace until the question is asked. And both times when the question was asked, he was much the best. Sprinting in that race 2 starts back, he took that race right over and drew clear quickly. And he did the same thing when they stretched him out last time. We'll take a look at the replay of the Sam F. Davis right now, because he just sat right up close, again, to Boca Boy, who was cutting the pace in there. He came for that horse off the quarter pole, and he just took over pretty quickly to take that race over and get clear. His stablemate, Nova Rags, who is not back in this race, chased him home to no avail. And this horse, he didn't, necessarily put that race away, but he held his advantage to the end, and he was much the best in there. A couple of the horses, I already mentioned Boca Boy, who was the pace setter, tired to finish fourth. Hidden Stash, you saw finishing third there. He's also back in here with a chance to do better. Candyman Rocket's the horse to beat. He is not a standout in this race. Again, he didn't really scare anyone away, and it feels like a couple of the horses that he beat last time have a chance to run a little bit better in this race. And if they do, they could certainly make things much closer. But Candyman Rocket, at least on the way in, is the horse to beat in here. The number 4, King of Dreams, is another horse who's going to be a bigger price in here. He's the kind of horse who I think could be interesting at any kind of a big price. Not that he doesn't have something to prove still, but he debuted on dirt at Aqueduct at the back in December of last year. It's a race that came up sloppy. This horse actually took money in that race, though. He caught a sloppy track. He didn't break that sharply. He chased the pace up the backstretch, and you could just tell he came under pressure really early in there. He couldn't keep up, and he got tired through the stretch. But just the fact that he took that kind of money in that race made me think that perhaps this horse had some potential. And of course, he came back in his second start. They switched him to turf. They stretched him out. He got right to the front, and he wired a field with a much improved performance with Lasix on. We'll see what happens. He's got a versatile enough pedigree to make me think that he certainly deserves one more chance on dirt. If he's going to be a big price in this race, I don't think he's the kind of horse that you just want to totally dismiss in here and think that he can't run, because it felt like maybe there were some excuses for that first start. He did really improve in his second start. Number 5 is Boca Boy. I think this horse is dangerous in here. We saw that Sam F. Davis last time. Again, they put him right on the lead in there. I thought he won a legitimate pace up front. He was no match for Candyman Rocket off the turn, but he's not like, he totally gave way in the stretch in there. He got a little tired. He kept plugging on. He finished fourth at the end. And he was off the layoff there. It just felt like a race that maybe this horse needed. He did take a step forward as far as buyers go. This is a horse whose 3 dirt starts as a 2-year-old were all over sloppy tracks. He won 2 of those right on the front end, including that 1 1/16 Stallion Series race back in September, which preceded the layoff. He just feels like a horse who has some talent, and his speed makes him dangerous in here. I suspect they will try to put him right on the front again. And if he's a little bit tighter for this race and can stay on a little bit stronger through the stretch, there's no reason why he can't take another step forward in here and be a lot tougher this time. I think at anything like his morning line price, if you can get it, he's a pretty dangerous horse. The 6 and the 7, 2 more horses for trainer Safi Joseph. Awesome Jerry and Moonlight Strike. They both tried stakes races in their most recent starts to no avail. So we'll see if they can do better. This doesn't feel as tough. Obviously, Awesome Jerry, he ran in the Holy Bull last time and was nowhere. His prior start in the Mucho Macho Man was better. He finished third while part of the pace, 85 buyer speed figure for that one. So this is, perhaps a horse who could do better as he takes a little bit of a step back in class, I feel like, for this race. He still has something to prove, however, and he's a horse who likes to be forward in his races, which may not be the place to be in here. Moonlight Strike was stepping up off of back-to-back wins last time in the Smarty Jones at Oaklawn, and he just got dusted by Caddo River, a 92 buyer speed figure for that horse, who was much the best in the Smarty Jones. Moonlight Strike has some improving to do if he's going to beat a field like this one. Number 8 is Hidden Stash. We talked about this horse, who was also coming out of the Sam Davis. I think this horse has a real chance to take a step forward here. You saw in the Sam Davis there. Overall, I thought he got a really good trip in there. He saved ground every step of the way, had a clear run along the inside around the second turn, a nice in-out run to the stretch. And he had a look at it. He was, sort of racing on, let's just say gamely, if evenly, at the end of that race. He never really threatened to win it, but he kept on to the finish. He wound up getting up for third at the end. He was on his wrong lead the entire way, which has been a habit of his that you would hope that he might correct through some racing. And second off the layoff, maybe, in fact, he'll do that. I think this horse can take a step forward in this race, if only because, and he did take a step forward in the Davis anyway, but I think he could take another one second off the layoff here, if only because his 2 races, once they stretched him out last year as a 2-year-old, I thought they were both good. He broke his maiden at Keeneland. Still looked a little bit green in that race, hard to settle early, steadied a little bit on the backstretch. He still looked green taking that race over in the stretch, but I thought he took it over pretty easily and liked the way he won that race. And he came right back in his next start at Churchill Downs, also around 2 turns. He was wide every step of the way, but he just never stopped running and he eventually tracked down the even money favorite on the lead. I thought that was an underrated win to close out his 2-year-old campaign. He took a step forward in the Sam Davis last time. Good trip or not, I thought he ran well last time, and I think this horse is a player right back in the Tampa Bay Derby. The number 9 Unbridled Honor is one of 2 for trainer Todd Pletcher in here. Both of his horses stepping up right off of maiden wins. This horse has a little bit more, it feels like he has a little bit more to prove maybe than his stablemate. He just didn't really run that well. He made his first 2 starts at Aqueducts late last year. He just didn't run well in either of them. They sprinted him first time out. He didn't have the speed really to sprint. He got outrun. He was never really a factor in that race. While, he was racing on a little bit at the end, but he never really got close. They stretched him out around 2 turns for his second start. He took a lot of money that day. It just felt like it was one of those situations where everybody was expecting this horse to really improve with distance. And as it turns out, he didn't really improve. At least in his second start, he didn't. He bumped into Risk Taking that day, who's a really nice horse, who I guess we'll see in the Wood Memorial next. But Unbridled Honor just really didn't do anything in that race. Off the pace the entire way, never really made a run at it, never came close in the stretch, and finished a distant 4th. He came back for a start down here for his 3rd career start, and he did do a little better breaking his maiden. We'll take a look at the replay here of Unbridled Honor. A little bit of traffic early in the race. Overall, he got a good trip. You can see there in the upper stretch, he's sort of over behind horses. He's needing room while holding his position. He finally gets that seam at about the 8th pull towards the inside. He comes on through, and he prevails. It was a step in the right direction for a horse who does have a nice pedigree, for obviously one of the best trainers out there. We'll see if he can improve again, because I feel like he's going to have to contend here. The 10 is Helium. Another horse with questions to answer. His questions revolve around surface and distance. 2 starts last year as a 2-year-old on synthetic sprinting up at Woodbine. He ran really well and looked good in both of those races to win, including the Display Stakes in middle of October. And he showed a good tactical speed that day. He doesn't really have a dirt pedigree. I guess that's a real sticking point. He's bred to go long. He doesn't really have a dirt pedigree. His connections are going to take a shot here and see if he can handle the main track if he can. And if he can run his best race on dirt, this is a horse who could easily improve enough to be a contender in this race. The 11 is Promise Keeper, the second of Pletcher's 2. He's it's an interesting situation with these Pletcher younger horses now, because they used to be automatic when they debuted sprinting in their careers. They were always well prepared. They always had speed, and it felt like they always ran well. That's not the case. The last couple of years, it feels like that's not an emphasis for Pletcher's barn anymore. This horse is a little bit of a case in point. They debuted him at 6 furlongs in January. Didn't really show that much speed, rode the inside, chasing the pace. I thought he stayed pretty gamely down to deep stretch before he maybe got a little bit tired and got out finished. He was no match for Candyman Rocket that day. But he came back for a second start. They stretched him out in distance, and he just felt like he took a big step forward off of that sprint debut. Yes, it was a sloppy track, but he had really easy speed that day. He got to the front with no trouble at all. In charge of that pace around the turn, and when they would set him down once they got into the stretch, he left that field behind. I thought he looked good winning, earned an 80 buyer speed figure for it. He has a nice pedigree behind him. It feels like more distance is going to be no problem for this horse. I just think there are things to like about him. Of Pletcher's 2, he was the one that I preferred, and he'll probably be the shorter price of the 2 as well. This is an interesting horse in this race. Number 12 is Sitting on Go. I like this horse. I'm starting to wonder how far he really wants to go, and it seems like 2-turn distance racing isn't really what he wants. His first 2 career starts as a 2-year-old were both really good, including a win in the Grade 3 Iroquois from off the pace. That's a 1-turn mile. His last 3 starts just have not been nearly as good. They're all 2-turn races. Obviously, the Breeders' Cup wasn't a race he had to win, but he had a big pace in front of him that day and did nothing with it. Came back in the Kentucky Jockey Club on relatively short rest. Another race that set up well for closers. He never got involved in that race in the stretch, and then he came back off the layoff in the Holy Bull last time, and once again, just made no impact at all. This is not as tough a spot as any of those last 3 necessarily, but he's got some real questions to answer, and if he's going to improve this time, he's going to have to do it from a tough outside post. He will be a big price, it feels like, though. So maybe if you liked him like I did in the past, you want to maybe give him one more chance at a big price. A lot going on in this race. Candyman Rocket, your morning line favorite and horse to beat. I just wanted to take a shot against him. I didn't necessarily think he had to beat some of the horses that he faced against last time, in particular the 5 Boca Boy and the 8 Hidden Stash. I thought those 2 horses had a real chance to turn the tables. And I'm just going to go in a totally different direction here, and I put the 11 Promise Keeper on top here for Todd Pletcher. He's got a tough post. He's going to need a trip from out there, but I thought he took a pretty big step forward when they stretched him out last time. And I just feel like he might have some talent to go along with that pedigree. So I wanted a different, a newer kind of face in here. I'll try Promise Keeper. I went 11-3, 8-5 in Saturday's DRF race of the day. It's the Grade 2 Tampa Bay Derby, race number 11 at Tampa. Approximate post time is 5:25 Eastern. Good luck.